Welcome to Redirect, Immigration Law and Perspectives, a mostly weekly podcast. I'm feeling really good about the show this morning. My sister sent me a text and said she really appreciates it. So,
really?
Yeah, feeling really good about the show.
Wow, well, let's not disappoint sis.
Yeah, that's what keeps us going here. So I'm here with Matthew Archambault, and he's a fellow immigration attorney in Philly.
That's right. That's where bad things happen.
Now,
lots of bad things. Oh, on that family note, by the way, my son, my 14-year-old son, I guess some of his friends found our podcast and they thought it was funny.
Well, they're wrong, but
yeah, I mean, clearly.
Good for them for
funny, haha, funny, you know.
It's funny that you have a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So, folks, if you like this show, we like you too, and you should give us money. You can go to patreon.com/redirect. We have a wonderful producer, Jeremiah Britt, at Jeremiah Britt, Britt, on Twitter, and he does a smash up job. Remember the old days when it was just like every episode was basically something went wrong.
Now,
messed up.
Yeah, something goes wrong a lot, but you don't hear it. So.
You don't. Do you ever listen back to the show?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I mean,
it sounds good.
I sound amazing. I
sound like shit, but that is nothing. I mean, Jeremy is a great producer, but he's not a miracle worker.
First of all, his name is Jeremiah, but
yeah, that's what I said.
You said Jeremy.
No, it's just I can't speak well.
Right, you can only do so much with that accent. He's played around with it, and it's a little bit of a lost cause, but. Yeah. So anyhow, if you like the show, become a patron. Yeah, it's a really awesome thing to do.
Yeah. And if you don't like the show, well, I mean, you're probably on the right track. Let's be honest.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with you. Trust me.
We're going to get to some immigration topics, things that are going on. But I want to ask you real quick how you're feeling about the coup.
Well, I think it's going well. I think it's the slow roll of the coup. Well, right. What coup are we talking about? Biden's or Trump's?
Oh no, the Trump coup.
Oh, okay. Because I think they're both cooing. So of course, because of the whole Dominion computer steal that Biden pulled off, right? So that's the first coup. And then Trump is going to coup it back. Yeah, it's pretty good.
This is the kind of nuance people tune into this show for. A lot of times on the internet, it's all hot or cold. Either Trump is the worst thing or the best thing. And we're here to really drop some hot takes about how both.
I'm actually here now. No one's talking about this. You're not going to hear this on the lamestream media or the right-wing echo chamber. But what's really happening is, like I said,
the drive-by media.
Yeah. We have the Biden coup. We have the Trump coup. And they're cooing against each other. And you know who's going to slip in the back door and take over? Jo Jorgensen. That's right. Jo Jorgensen. She's the libertarian candidate. She is the mastermind behind all of this.
Finally. The tyranny of driver's licenses is finally about to be destroyed.
Yeah, has it been stressful?
Yeah, well, it's
kind of, right? Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it is, it's been really funny to I talked to one of my sisters who, her teenage son is saying that there was a lot of fraud, and he's seeing all this stuff on, I don't know, YouTube, and he's seeing it on Instagram probably, and it's classic gaslighting. So she's texting me going is this real? You start to wonder, right? Because there's just, your son comes to you and he's like, there's a video of somebody burning ballots in one of those old steel barrels. And you go, wait, what? That sounds weird. And you start to not really know what to believe. But I've just been enjoying following the legal cases. Now, these are the actual arguments that the Trump campaign has in their quiver.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to go, you can find them all over the place. And if you kind of try to match up what they're saying on TV and what is actually in the complaints, in the court cases, you're going to be really disappointed.
There's a Grand Canyon between what my nephew is digging up on Instagram and what is being presented to these judges, which is like, hey, this poll worker who filled out an online inquiry, whatever you call it, form, says that she felt a little weird at the polling place.
Yeah.
And that's like basically the extent of their evidence.
I mean, all the lawyers are saying, no, we're not saying that there's fraud. We're not saying anything was like untoward. It's just like the process or something. They're really trying to, I mean, I hope they're getting paid for because, Trump's not really good at that. I hope they get paid up front.
Right. Got to get that deposit.
But they're really trying to walk this fine line of like making money doing this work and not losing their license. Because, if they brought like the bullshit that you're going to see in YouTube or TikTok or whatever medium you're getting your conspiracy from, they would lose their license or they at least be sanctioned.
Now, I have two hot takes about the only actual coup happening. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I think there's only one side cooing here.
You don't agree with my...
Both sides normally do it.
I want it to both sides. We got to...
Both sides.
Whoopi Goldberg said something mean, and
that's a lot.
I think it's just as bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ryan G69 on Twitter is rude, just like the president. And it's
that guy, best follower on Twitter.
Both sides got to turn down the temperature. But no, I have two concerns about the coup. Number one, a lot of people on the left are real smug about how fruitless this is going to be and how dumb it is and how, of course, Biden will take over. And I think that that's true, but also, I mean, I don't know how many people he needs to convince or how many people he needs to fire and replace with like Jared and Jared's frat bros before maybe he doesn't actually leave. So I don't know. I'm a little worried about that being a thing, but also just the fact that I think it's at something like 85% of Republicans think that the election was stolen and that it was fraudulent and all these things. And now you're talking about tens of millions of people who they're not going to do any reflecting about like, well, we lost and we've got to, change our views or whatever, or we've got to, none of that stuff is going to happen. Not that it would necessarily anyways, but there's some real potential for violence and other types of things when people feel like they've been couped, right? They're not just disaffected. They think that there was a coup against them. And these are the people who have, incidentally, the guns and the trucks and, all of those sorts of things. And these are people who are now totally convinced, not that Trump lost and we've got to move on, but that they've been cheated. And that's a dangerous thing.
I don't think Trump has the work ethic to pull off a coup. I just don't think he does. I think it's a grift. I think he's mad. I think he's upset. I think this is a lot of him being a petulant little child. But I don't think he has the work ethic to really do what would be necessary to do the actual work.
But see, this is a slightly different version of something I've heard from some people on the left, which is that he's not smart enough.
No, I don't think he is. No, I don't know if he's smart enough. I just don't think he has it in him to really do it. Like,
yeah,
I just don't. I think throwing against the wall has been the theme of his whole political career.
Right,
starting with the birther. He's throwing against the wall. It worked for him. The whole build the wall, Mexico is going to pay for it. That's almost like the ultimate throwing against the wall. And I don't think he's really committed to doing the work. I think he likes to go out and do those rallies. I think he'll miss that. I also don't think he's committed to it. Maybe I'm wrong. I do think a lot of this is, he's a grifter. And I think he's smart enough to know that he's not going to be successful. And I think this is all performative art where he'll use this, the election was stolen from me by this deep state and all that. and that will be the grift for the next couple of years.
Right. But so that alleviates my first concern, which is that this coup that seems really improbable ends up happening because, Jared gets in charge of the military or whatever. Okay, so maybe
so for the second part, now I got my bad.
But for the second thing, what you're saying does exacerbate the thing that I mentioned, which is these people are going to think they've been cheated. He's going to resign or whatever and take his ball and go home, but continue to do rallies and tell these people it's so true what you think that we were robbed. We were so robbed. And
but that's why I'm kind of glad these court cases are going forward, because I do believe he'll lose them. And I don't really think there's much of a chance that even if they're successful, they're going to have any impact on the ultimate result. So I think now, are there going to be that group of people that are going to be like, yeah, it was a deep state, and of course we couldn't prove it in court because of deep state, George Soros, whatnot.
Totally.
But I think that's going to be diminished with these going in court and continuing to lose. But by the way, where is Q? Q has been anonymous for how long now, right? Isn't it time that Q stepped forward and really dropped the hammer on all of this?
There was some sort of study, I've heard about this or read about it, that like doomsday cults or religions that predict the end of the world, when they're wrong, their followers actually become more ardent in their support. Like there's some psychological thing that happens where they double down and not be like, oh, it's all wrong. They find reasons why, X, Y, or Z didn't happen.
Yeah, but I do wonder if, what percentage of Trump's support, I mean, it's very cult-like, but what percentage of that would fall into that type of hardcore
I don't know.
category? But look, isn't the whole Trump thing about owning the libs? So,
well, look, you seem convinced that these court cases that literally nobody but us reads about on Twitter are going to impact people. But I'm telling you, because I listened to talk radio. I called in the other day to my local talk radio. And I got to get these stories in. People love these stories. And I told them, you guys know that in his emails, he's emailing apparently 17 times a day asking for money. And in the fine print, it says, by the way, I get to use most of this money for my campaign debts.
Yeah, isn't it like anything under $8,000 goes to his campaign debt?
Yeah, it's something.
So, you can donate 10,000, and 2 that will go for this, and 8 will go
right
grift.
And then I pointed out that you guys should know too. There's no evidence of fraud. They haven't presented any.
They haven't. Do you get that? Is that the reaction?
Sometimes they do laugh at me, but I told them that in none of these court cases, the campaign not only doesn't have evidence of fraud, like you mentioned, they're not alleging fraud, and it didn't matter. The rest of the calls for the rest of the morning and the hosts were talking about how the results are fake, and it's so I don't know. And if he's out there saying, indeed, you are correct, they are fake, and you can't trust the news media because it's fake news, it's just going to be so corrosive to everything. So that'll be cool. I don't know. I'm less confident than you are that any significant portion of the Republicans will learn from facts. They've been unable up to this point. So anyways.
Yeah, it's going to be, does it matter?
Anyways, the point, I guess, was a lot of people are like, doesn't matter. Come July 21st, guess what? He'll be out of there. And I haven't let myself totally celebrate because I don't know.
When do you think he goes to Mar-a-Lago and just never comes back?
That's one theory, right? That's what Michael Cohen said on TV. That
I could totally see it. If it was me, I would do it. Be this. I'm out. I'll see you later. I'd be a totally sore loser.
Right. That's not surprising.
No.
But look, let's talk about Joe Biden and
quote unquote president elect.
now that everything is fine now and he's elected, we don't have to worry about anything.
Nope, everything's going to be
everything's
great.
going to be super fixed.
I'm just filing motions to continue for Biden's awesome immigration relief. And yeah, they're just being granted left and right. It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
So a couple things. There's some indication that the administration will do some of the good things we've talked about, right? Like shore up DACA.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about the easy stuff, right?
Sure.
Okay. So DACA, right?
Yeah. One of the other things I saw was, basically going back to the 2014 enforcement priority memo, which we've talked about on the show, but essentially what it means is you've got this massive sub-agency, ICE. They put people in removal proceedings to try and have them deported. And in 2014, and really a little bit before that, but in 2014, the Obama administration said, you know what, guys, we only have so many resources. There's a lot of people who are undocumented. Let's just go after the ones with like recent deportations who should have left but didn't, or people with serious criminal history. And there's a lot of argument over what constitutes serious criminal history. You and I think, agree that even the Obama framework was unkind in many ways. But if you've been here a long time, you've got family here, maybe you've got a couple little misdemeanors or you have no criminal history, the Obama administration was basically saying, we're leaving you alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that they can accomplish rather quickly.
Right? And it seems like that's what they've signaled, that they would go back to prioritizing certain deportations, which has always been weird to me because it seems like that's what the conservatives would want.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, you think like, okay, let's get all these people that are okay out of the way and then let's like go after bad ones.
Right. But they haven't done that during the Trump administration. One of the first things he did was just to get rid of any kind of enforcement priority. So, and I always give this example, but it's like a sheriff coming in and saying, you know what? Any traffic infraction is going to be treated exactly the same and it'll be fully prosecuted to the extent of the law, like 1 mile over or like a reckless DUI. They're now the same. And that doesn't make any sense. So,
yeah.
Anyhow, what else? I saw some rumors about potentially TPS for Guatemala because
I think
disasters.
let's step back. I mean, I think you have to talk about all the travel bans, all those things, all those executive orders that have kind of come out. I think those are the easiest ones to get rid of, right?
Right.
And then you have to worry about who's going to challenge these. So for like the travel ban, if he just like rescinded the travel ban, who's going to be able to challenge that in court? I don't think anyone's going to have standing to challenge that. So it's different than when you take away something, when you restrict something. So, I think all those things like travel ban, it'd be interesting to see how much in the weeds they get. One big change recently has been the asylum clock. When you file for asylum, you have to wait 150 days before you can file for a work permit. Trump has changed it to 365 days, which is a really big deal. 150 days, I never understood. I think it used to be that you could file for them right away. They changed that. So hopefully they would change that back. And my hope is that they have someone who's going to be working with them, who's going to be able to get really into the weeds and kind of highlight all these things. So I think those are the steps before you get to things like TPS. Because I think TPS is a little bit more of I think there's more involved in it than just an executive order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, there's so many things. Even one that doesn't get a lot of attention, but this presidential proclamation that I think he did it back in April. I mean, I've got a client stuck in Mexico. He should have been back like in March.
Well, isn't that supposed to expire at the end of the year? And I'm guessing Trump could, renew that, extend it. But, there are a lot of little things. My sister-in-law is just coming from Peru. They were all set to come over and this presidential proclamation happened. And so they have to wait. Now,
and you were like, oh, no, darn.
I mean, they actually came down with COVID and they were both in the hospital for COVID. So where they should have been here, a normal process. Now, the COVID obviously has interrupted all that anyways. But, these are things that people look at and they might kind of flip through in the paper and see it and not think too much of it, but they have real world consequences. So fortunately, they're out of the hospital. They're doing okay. They're getting better because COVID is a hoax, right? And yeah, but there are a lot of those things, and I think that he's going to have a lot on his plate addressing, just like to undo what Trump did before we can even get to the point where it's like now make progress, right?
Right.
And
right.
With,
so
with the Senate, I don't think he'll be able to do it, even if we win the seats in Georgia. I think the filibuster is not going to go anywhere. I still think you're going to have some conservative Democrats that might throw up roadblocks to some of the good immigration legislation.
Right. Well, the IRLC put out a blueprint for a Biden administration. I mean, a lot of this stuff, as we've seen with Trump, I mean, we didn't need any legislative moves for him to wreak havoc on the immigration system. So I think in the same way, you could do a lot of good without actually changing the laws. But I wanted to mention,
you can get us back to where we were, right? I mean,
right. And you can go,
I guess you can go forward.
You could go forward. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but at least getting us back to where we were would be an improvement. But did you know?
Okay. I did not, probably.
You were saying we got to get the right people in there. And it looks like Cecilia Munoz has been named to his transition team.
Yeah.
So she's somebody who, on the one hand, knows immigration law, knows about the ins and outs of policy. She's also somebody who legally speaking, sucks. And she was responsible in a lot of ways for at least justifying, probably carrying out some of the harshest enforcement policies during the Obama administration, including deportation of thousands of Central American children. And apparently, I'm just reading this in Democracy Now!, but apparently she played a role in killing an executive order that would have halted deportations. I didn't know about that. So got to bring her back, right? This is just another reminder that this is going to be a mixed bag, which is better than just a bag full of dog, but definitely a mixed bag. So,
yeah, I think the immigration advocacy community is much stronger now, and I think much more aware, much more active than it was when Obama took office. I think no one is naive or, just so trusting. And Biden, David Leopold, I understand, is going to be working with the transition immigration lawyer from Ohio. And he certainly knows the ins and outs of immigration law. He was a big advocate for DACA back in the day. Friend of the show. He was on one of our first shows, actually, way back in the day. He shared a show with Matthew Culkin, which was an interesting mix. But he certainly knows his way, and there's a lot of criticism of David Leopold, and probably coming from me. But he certainly knows his way around. But I think we're much more active, and I think the advocacy universe is much more active. We're more engaged, and what you had seen happen in Arizona, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. But Arizona, I think you saw a big turnout of Latinos that helped switch that state from red to blue. So I think I'm going to be optimistic, but still wary of what's going to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree with you that we're just better prepared. I mean, if you've been actively engaged in this issue at all over the last however long, 6 years, let's say, this name now, Cecilia Munoz. If you'd told me in, I don't know, 2008 or 9, like, Cecilia Munoz is joining the Obama administration, I would have been like, great, I guess. I don't know. Like, I have no idea who that is.
Actually, you probably would have said great because she had kind of a good reputation going in. And so did the policies of the Obama administration make Cecilia Munoz into what we know of her today, or did she help affect that policy? So, we'll see. I mean, sometimes people just do what their bosses tell them to do, and we'll see. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, I am optimistic, but weary.
Right. So, according to reports, They've got some good things planned right out of the gate. They're maybe bringing on some troubling people. I wanted to talk about this one last thing. This is an article in Newsweek. It says Biden wants another crack at, quote, comprehensive immigration reform, or CIR, right? That's the immigration lawyer shorthand. But activists are wary of past failures. Now, we had Austin Coker on a few weeks ago, and he said we should abandon ship on comprehensive immigration reform. I agree. I wonder what you think.
Yeah. Immigration has a lot of moving parts. So
Right.
I think they should be addressed individually. And you have a whole employment immigration apparatus that we don't really talk about because we don't do it and we don't know much about it. So those interests don't necessarily have anything to do with what we usually talk about, the humanitarian side, asylum and other types of things like that. So to kind of jam them in a package together, for me, doesn't make sense, because I think what happens is the forces on the corporate side are much stronger than the forces on our side. So when they need to pull for compromise to get that corporate side placated, they're going to be pulling from us, the humanitarian side. We're us as the humanitarian side. So I think that we can do them separately. We don't need some big omnibus bill to pass. Things like DACA. DACA is a no-brainer, standalone. All the polls will tell you DACA is wildly popular. That should be something that should be able to get done, right? And when I first started practicing immigration law, which would have been back in 2003, they were talking about the DREAM Act. And that was, of course, they're going to pass the DREAM Act, right?
Right.
Look where we're at. But there's no reason why the DREAM Act has to be in the same legislation as H-1B fix. They don't have to be in the same one. So,
right.
Yeah, but definitely comprehensive immigration reform is too unwieldy. Break it up. It makes sense.
Yeah, the bills just get too big and too complex. And eventually one side will poison pill the thing for the other side, and it's game over. I mean, it's just happened over and over again. Didn't we got an amnesty during the Trump administration for who? What country is it?
Liberia.
Right. So Liberians can just get green cards now, right?
Yeah. By the way, if there are any Liberians listening, I think you have until the end of the year.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah, get on it.
I've never had a Liberian client, and so this hasn't come up. But
we have a lot here, and there's a big Liberian community in Philadelphia.
Oh, right on. Yeah. So, I mean, this got passed. We should have somebody on to talk about it. But the counter argument is that's a small thing. So it's not anything to get people riled up on. If you tried to do that with Mexico or whatever, it'd be all over Fox News. But the point is, you can do some of this stuff, attach it to maybe other things, or you can do it piecemeal, and I think be much more effective.
I mean, think of what would you say would be kind of a small change that might even kind of go unnoticed that would have the biggest impact?
So one thing that I've been thinking about, which actually kind of fits into the things that Biden could do right away on his own. And this is for the population that I work with, which is mostly like Mexicans or Central Americans who entered illegally without papers or inspection. They're not eligible to get papers here, and they got to go back, and there's waivers and all kinds of things that can be problematic. But if people were allowed to just apply for humanitarian parole in place, they could get their green cards here. In a lot of cases, it would solve a lot of backlog issues, funding issues at USCIS. And the thing is, those regulations already exist. You would just need to spell out sort of more clearly who could and couldn't qualify. But legislatively, I mean, there's a couple different bars or penalties you could get rid of. There's existing laws where you could just extend the deadlines on things that used to exist. Really small bore stuff. I mean, we're talking about if you changed 5 lines of the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, I mean, possibly millions of people would be able to get papers, right?
Yeah, I mean, one, you could just remove the 3 and 10-year bar and the permanent bar, which are if you've been in the country unlawfully for a certain amount of time, then you're barred from coming back in, which restricts people's ability to go and come from the United States. But also, you could make a legislative change saying that you do not have to have been admitted or inspected to be able to qualify for adjustment of status, meaning that if you entered iwi, and that could be a statutory change, that could be a small bill. And I'm sure, it would get the restrictionists, they would hoot and holler about it, but would it be that big of a deal? And so you wonder, that does not have to be a big omnibus bill to say we're going to change this one little aspect of the Immigration Nationality Act, because right now, in order, if you're married to a U.S. citizen or you have a child who's over 21, who's a U.S. citizen, and you had entered without inspection, they can't petition for you. But if you had entered with a visa, then they could. What Stephen just said, that you could make it so they could be paroled in, which is a legal fiction. But if you just made it so it didn't matter whether you were inspected or paroled in, then that little change would have a huge impact. And it's just a small change. It's one line in the Immigration and Nationality Act. So,
I mean, I like the idea of just getting rid of that requirement, but there's an old law, 245I, which says maybe you've worked here without papers, maybe you entered without papers, but if you have a family petition filed before a certain cutoff date, which was last extended to April 30th, 2001, then you pay what amounts to a fine. I usually think about it as kind of a fine. You pay $1,000 and then you can get your green card here. And so that might be, if you're talking about messaging or whatever, trying to have something that is small enough to not raise too many questions, but also, not cause too many waves, might be easier because you're talking about people coming forward and paying money into the system, paying a fine essentially, and then being able to adjust status. But the point is, that's a law that exists. We have people who take advantage of it all the time because they have old family petitions. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to say, oh, April 30th, 2001. Well, now it's April 30th, 2021.
Yeah, and I think that's good, right? And that doesn't have to be included in a revamping of the L visa system, right?
Right, exactly. And also, none of these things fix all the problems, but they go a really long way. A really long way.
Yeah,
so
there are lots of problems. So just anyone listening will understand. I would be perfectly fine if they burned the whole Immigration Nationality Act. I mean, I think that would probably be the best start, but I think we have to be a little realistic as to what's going to happen. But yeah, these small little things can really go a long way. And I'm sure one time, if we want to have a really boring show, we should have an employment lawyer on and can talk about those changes. But I don't care enough about that. So,
right.
Any interest, Stephen?
No.
I mean, there is a big thing with H-1Bs and that realm of, there are a lot of families who have been here for a long time who are not going to be able to, have a really hard time adjusting their status. It's really big in the Indian community, just because that system is so broken and there's so many backlogs and all this, and it just doesn't work. Now, there are some people out there, I don't mean to be too flippant, but there are families that have lived here, some children that have lived here almost their entire lives, and they have no path forward. So,
right.
But even though they're here lawfully, they have no path forward to get a green card, which obviously has to be a frustrating way to live.
Right. Yeah.
But that's probably for another podcast. I mean, not another show of our podcast, but another podcast.
Different podcast entirely.
Yeah, Jim Hacken can do that.
Yeah. So we'll keep our eyes out and continue to push for smart changes. But I don't know. I just don't think there's an appetite for CIR. So, Matthew, I think that's about all I have.
Yeah. We're getting close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we are. Are you going to get together with your family and...
It's my immediate family.
Spread the Rona?
It's just, we have no guests.
My family keeps asking if I'm coming.
Who?
And it's my family. And it's no, I'm not coming. I'm not coming over for.
Are you going to set up a Zoom thing? Are you going to do that?
I don't know. But anyways, the coronavirus is out of control. And
how's it up there in Yakima?
Well, it's one of those things where, like, just like what happened, I think, in the Dakotas, and in Idaho, I've got a sister in Idaho who spent most of the summer sort of like, not bragging, but being like, hey, man, I'm still going to the gym and things are fine. And what are you guys freaking out about? And then all of a sudden, those numbers really spike. So right now here, I think things are okay, but it's only a matter of time before you end up looking like North Dakota if you're not careful. And so people are really scared of Jay Inslee shutting down the economy again.
Fascist. Tyrant.
It's tyranny, putting on your mask. So,
So this week I'm going to try to get over to Four Seasons, Total Landscaping. That
was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Dude,
and then the fact that like they called it while he was in the middle, it's just.
It is like in like this barren section of Northeast Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying now that it was on purpose, and I don't know, but they said it's on purpose because they needed a parking lot in an area where they could actually have support. And it probably is like one of the only areas in Philadelphia that you would engender majority Trump support. So
I see. Well,
but I'm going to go over there and then I'm going to stop by the bookstore next door. I'm looking for your Christmas present.
Get yourself one of those Black Tower dildos.
I'm shopping for you, my son.
Oh, I see.
It's Christmas. I want to get ahead of the game this year.
You always are a pretty big giver. So I was going to say something about that press conference, though. Shoot. Something that was...
you can't say anything that's funnier than what actually happened. That's the thing. Like, people can mock it, but when I first saw it, I saw Four Seasons, and then it got deleted. And I'm like, well, what's up with that? Like, what did he do? Meaning Trump. And then it came like Four Seasons Total Landscaping. So I Googled it and I saw where it was, and it's hilarious.
It's so funny.
Going to be good laughs in the gulag, right?
That's right. You said that Trump is too lazy for a coup, and I've seen some people say that he's not smart enough. He's just a dumb guy. But I do think we give too much credit to Hitler and Nazis in general, and all fascists are like this. It's always goofy and hilarious until it's not.
Yeah, I think Adolf really put in the work. I think he put in the time.
Well, he was on meth, so...
yeah, Trump is on Adderall, so...
Well, yeah, there you go.
Now we ran into a Nazi segment. It's time to end it.
Yeah, we hit a wall. We hit a wall probably 20 minutes ago, but we just...
Pushed right through it.
Well, we tried. We didn't. We just pushed against the wall.
All right, good night.
Good talking to you.